I've been on this bench for over 30 years. I've seen thousands of cases, but every once in a while, a case comes along that reminds me why I became a judge in the first place. Today, I want to share one of those cases with you, not because it was the most complicated, but because it taught us all something about accountability, integrity, and what real love looks like. It was a cold November morning when this case appeared on my docket, assault and battery on an elderly person. The victim was Mr. Robert Martinez, a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran. 2 tours. Purple Heart, Bronze Star for Valor, 30 years as a Providence firefighter, a man who spent his life serving others. 3 days before he appeared in my courtroom, Mr. Martinez was walking his dog in Roger Williams Park. A BMW came speeding through, nearly hit him. When he raised his hand to signal the driver to slow down, that driver stopped, got out, and confronted this elderly veteran. According to 3 witnesses, the driver shoved Mr. Martinez to the ground. The fall caused a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a fractured wrist. Mr. Martinez spent 2 nights in Rhode Island Hospital. The driver left him bleeding on the pavement. When the defendant walked into my courtroom that morning, I could see immediately what kind of person I was dealing with. Expensive suit, designer watch, and a smirk, an arrogant smirk that told me he believed he was untouchable. He passed right by Mr. Martinez, who was sitting there in his Vietnam veteran cap with his arm in a cast, and didn't even glance at him. No acknowledgement, no remorse, nothing. I asked him how he pleaded. His attorney started speaking for him. I held up my hand. "Counselor," I said, "I asked your client, Mr. Cole, do you have a voice?" He stood up, adjusted his jacket, and said, "Not guilty, Your Honor. This whole thing is ridiculous." Ridiculous. That word hung in the air like an insult to everyone who had suffered at this man's hands. I removed my glasses. "Ridiculous?" I repeated. "Mr. Cole, I've reviewed the security footage. I've read the hospital reports. I've seen the photographs of Mr. Martinez's injuries. Would you like to reconsider your characterization of this case as ridiculous?" He didn't back down. "With all due respect, Your Honor," he said, and let me tell you, when someone starts with all due respect, disrespect is about to follow. This is being blown out of proportion. Some old guy got in my way. I barely touched him, and now I'm being dragged into court like a criminal. Some old guy. Barely touched him. The courtroom gasped. I set down my glasses. I stood up from my bench and walked around to the front. I wanted to look this young man in the eye. "Mr. Martinez," I said, turning to the victim, "would you please stand and tell Mr. Cole who you are?" That elderly man rose slowly, supporting himself with his good arm. "Your Honor," he said, "my name is Robert Martinez. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1968 to 1971. I did 2 tours in Vietnam. I was awarded the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star for Valor. I'm a retired Providence firefighter. I've lived in this city for 50 years. And 3 days ago, this man assaulted me for no reason other than I asked him to slow down in a public park." I nodded respectfully to Mr. Martinez and turned back to the defendant. "Mr. Cole, do you understand what you just heard? You assaulted a decorated combat veteran, a man who risked his life for this country, a man who spent 30 years running into burning buildings to save people, and you called him some old guy who got in your way." His smirk was finally starting to fade. "Your Honor," he said, "I didn't know he was a veteran. How was I supposed to know?" I looked at him and said, "Mr. Cole, it shouldn't matter if he's a veteran or not. Assault is assault. But the fact that you think it would only matter if you knew his service record tells me everything I need to know about your character." His attorney tried to salvage the situation. "Your Honor, my client is young and made a poor choice of words, but the evidence will show." "Evidence?" I interrupted. "Counselor, I've seen the evidence. Let's watch it together." We played the security footage for the entire courtroom. There it was, clear as day. The BMW speeding through the park, nearly hitting Mr. Martinez. The veteran raising his hand. The defendant slamming on his brakes, getting out, and violently shoving a 70-year-old man to the ground, then standing over him, pointing, shouting, before casually getting back in his car and driving away. When the video ended, I looked at the defendant. Still think this is ridiculous, Mr. Cole? His face had gone pale. But even then, his ego wouldn't let him back down completely. Your Honor, I was having a bad day. I'd just gotten some bad news. I wasn't thinking clearly. A bad day, I said. Mr. Cole, I've been on this bench for over 30 years. I've seen people who lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their children come before me. You know what they don't do? Assault elderly veterans because they're having a bad day. I walked closer to him. Let me tell you what I think happened, Mr. Cole. I think you've spent your entire life believing you're special. I think your father's position as police chief has shielded you from consequences. I think you've never been held accountable for your actions. And I think you walked into my courtroom today expecting that pattern to continue. He tried to interrupt me. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. You see, Mr. Cole, I've dealt with people like you before. People who think their last name, their father's position, their family's money makes them untouchable. But here's what you're about to learn. In my courtroom, none of that matters. What matters is the law. What matters is justice. What matters is treating every human being with dignity and respect. And then came the moment no one expected. I looked toward the back of the courtroom. Chief Cole, I called out, would you please come forward? The entire room turned around. Sitting in the back row, standing up slowly, was Police Chief Thomas Cole. He'd been there the whole time. He heard everything his son said. He watched his son show no remorse, and the look on his face, it wasn't anger, it was heartbreak. The defendant spun around, and for the first time since entering my courtroom, his arrogance completely shattered. Dad, what are you doing here? Chief Cole walked down the center aisle, each step heavy with the weight of 35 years in law enforcement. He was in civilian clothes, no uniform, no badge, just a father watching his son destroy everything he taught him. Chief Cole, I said, thank you for being here. I know this must be incredibly difficult. Your son seems to believe that your position will protect him from the consequences of his actions. He's implied multiple times that because you run law enforcement in this city, he's somehow above accountability. I'd like to give you an opportunity to address that belief. The courtroom held its breath. Chief Cole took a deep breath. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. Your Honor, my son is wrong. He has always been wrong about that. I've spent 35 years serving this city. I've arrested drug dealers, murderers, corrupt officials. I've put my life on the line to protect the innocent and uphold the law. And not once, not one single time have I ever believed that my badge gave me or my family the right to break those same laws. The defendant tried to speak. Dad, the chief held up his hand with an authority that silenced his son immediately. Derek, be quiet. You've said enough. He turned back to me. Your Honor, I watched the security footage the day after the incident. I saw what my son did to Mr. Martinez. I've read the hospital reports. I know exactly what happened. And I'm here today not as Police Chief Cole, but as Thomas Cole, a father who failed to teach his son the most important lessons: respect, humility, and accountability. His voice cracked slightly. I thought I taught him right from wrong. I thought I showed him what it means to serve others, to protect the vulnerable, to treat everyone with dignity, regardless of their station in life. But somewhere along the way, I failed. And that failure, he gestured toward his son, that failure is standing right here. The defendant's face crumbled. For the first time, tears welled up in his eyes. Dad, please. Chief Cole turned to his son, and what he said next, I will remember it for the rest of my career. Derek, I love you, you're my son, and that will never change. But love doesn't mean protecting you from the consequences of your actions. Love means holding you accountable so you can become the man you're supposed to be. He looked back at me. Your Honor, I'm here to tell you and this court that whatever sentence you deem appropriate, you have my full support. My son assaulted a decorated veteran. He showed no remorse. He disrespected this court, and he disrespected everything I've spent my life standing for. He deserves to face the full weight of the law, and I will not interfere. In fact, if I could, I would ask you to be even more severe than you normally would be, because he needs to learn this lesson now before he hurts someone else." The courtroom erupted in whispers. This was unprecedented. A police chief in open court asking a judge to throw the book at his own son. The defendant was openly crying now. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." Chief Cole's voice became firm. "Derek, do you know what I did yesterday? I visited Mr. Martinez in his home. I apologized to him on your behalf, even though I know that doesn't undo what you did. I looked him in the eye and told him that my son's actions don't represent the values of this police department or this family. And do you know what he said to me?" The defendant shook his head, tears streaming down his face. He said, "Chief, your son needs help, not protection." "Help." The chief paused. "And he's right. You don't need me to bail you out. You need to face what you've done and change." I had listened to all of this with deep emotion. And then I spoke. "Chief Cole, I want to thank you for your courage today. What you've done, standing here, putting justice above your natural instinct to protect your child, that takes more strength than most people will ever understand." I looked at the defendant. "Mr. Cole, do you understand what just happened here? Your father, a man who could have used his influence to make this go away, instead chose to uphold the law. He chose to honor Mr. Martinez. He chose to honor the badge he's worn for 35 years. That is what integrity looks like." The defendant could barely speak through his tears. "Your Honor, I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything." "That's the first honest thing you've said since you walked into this courtroom," I replied. "But sorry isn't enough, Mr. Cole. Actions have consequences." I delivered my sentence. "Derek Michael Cole, I find you guilty of assault and battery on an elderly person. This is a serious crime, made more serious by your complete lack of remorse when you first appeared before me. Here is your sentence. You will serve 90 days in the Providence County Correctional Facility. You will complete 200 hours of community service, specifically working with elderly veterans at the VA hospital. You will attend anger management counseling for 1 year. You will write a formal letter of apology to Mr. Martinez to be read in this courtroom, followed by a face-to-face meeting where you will apologize to him personally." The defendant nodded, accepting each part of the sentence. "Yes, Your Honor, but I'm not finished." I continued. "You will also create a video apology that will be posted on the Providence Police Department's social media accounts, where you will explain what you did, why it was wrong, and what you're doing to make amends. Your father has agreed to this because sunshine is the best disinfectant for arrogance. Furthermore, after you complete your sentence, you will speak to the Providence Police Academy recruits about privilege, accountability, and what happens when you believe you're above the law. Your father will arrange this. You will share your story not to humiliate you, but to prevent other young people from making the same mistakes." Chief Cole spoke up. "Your Honor, I want to add something, if I may. Derek will also be moving out of my house. He's 32 years old. He's been living under my roof, under my protection, under my name. That ends today. He needs to learn to stand on his own, support himself, and understand that privilege is earned, not inherited." The defendant looked at his father with devastation. "Dad, it's time, son," the chief said, his voice breaking. "It's time for you to grow up." I turned to Mr. Martinez. "Mr. Martinez, do you have anything you'd like to say?" The 70-year-old veteran stood slowly. "Your Honor, I don't want revenge. I just want this young man to understand that every person he meets deserves respect. Age, rank, position, none of that matters. We're all human beings trying to live our lives with dignity. If he learns that lesson, then this whole experience will have been worth it." The grace in those words silenced the entire courtroom. Here was a man who had been assaulted, hospitalized, and disrespected, offering forgiveness and wisdom instead of anger. I addressed the defendant one final time. "Mr. Cole, you heard Mr. Martinez. A man you assaulted is showing you more grace than you deserve. I suggest you spend your time in custody thinking about that, thinking about the kind of man you want to be." thinking about whether you want to continue being the person who walked into this courtroom today, or if you want to become someone your father can be proud of. Court is adjourned. As officers approached to take the defendant into custody, Chief Cole walked over to his son. They stood face to face for a long moment. Then the chief did something that broke everyone's heart. He hugged his son tightly. "I love you," the chief whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "But I love you enough to let you face this. You'll get through it. And when you do, you'll be better. You'll be the man I know you can be." The defendant sobbed into his father's shoulder. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." "I know, son. Now prove it." The officers led the defendant away. Chief Cole stood there, watching his son disappear through the courtroom doors, tears streaming down his face. That is what real love looks like. Not protection from consequences, but support through them. I approached Chief Cole and extended my hand. We shook a moment of mutual respect between two men who've dedicated their lives to service. "You did the right thing," I said quietly. He nodded. "Doesn't make it hurt any less." "No, I agreed, but it makes it worth it." Before the courtroom emptied, I made one more announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, what you witness here today is not just about one case. It's about the choice we all face when someone we love does wrong. Do we enable them, protect them, make excuses for them, or do we love them enough to hold them accountable? I looked around the courtroom. Chief Cole could have used his influence to make this go away. Instead, he chose justice. He chose Mr. Martinez. He chose the values he spent his life upholding. That is courage. That is integrity. That is what real leadership looks like. The courtroom erupted in applause. People were crying. Veterans were saluting Chief Cole. Mr. Martinez walked over to the chief and extended his good hand. "Chief," Mr. Martinez said, "your son is lucky to have a father like you." The chief shook his hand, overcome with emotion. "Mr. Martinez, I'm sorry for what he did to you." "He'll learn," Mr. Martinez said, "and when he does, he'll make you proud. I can see it already." 6 months later, I received word about what happened next. Derek Cole walked out of the Providence County Correctional Facility a different man. He had lost weight, gained humility, and found purpose. His 200 hours at the VA hospital had turned into volunteer work that continued long after his sentence was complete. He apologized to Mr. Martinez in person, a meeting that both men described as healing. Mr. Martinez became a mentor to Derek, teaching him about service, sacrifice, and the true meaning of strength. Derek's video apology went viral, viewed over 3 million times. Young people across the country saw what accountability looks like. They saw what happens when privilege meets justice. They saw what real transformation requires. Chief Cole attended every one of Derek's anger management sessions, not because he had to, but because he wanted to support his son's genuine change. Their relationship, broken by that day in court, slowly rebuilt itself on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. And Derek Cole, the arrogant man who once said, "My dad runs this town," now works as an advocate for veteran services, using his story to teach others about privilege, accountability, and redemption. That case didn't just deliver justice. It saved a life, healed a family, and proved something I believed my entire career. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to protect someone from the consequences they need to face. Real love isn't protecting people from consequences. It's supporting them through the consequences they need to become better. That is the legacy I hope to leave. That is the courage Chief Thomas Cole showed that day. And that is the grace Mr. Robert Martinez offered even to the man who hurt him. Justice served, lessons learned. Thank you.